What's going on, YouTube? Chevy brother back in the building. I'm just sitting here in the lab. Got the Stampede torn down. We're doing some more work on it, and I just wanted to chime in and ask you guys a couple questions because I popped my motor out here, and I took the plate off, and the plate is bent like in the middle here. I don't know if you guys can see that in the camera, because I did bolt it back up to the motor. But this bad boy is bent. Now, have you guys ever experienced anything like that? I don't know what could have bent the motor because nothing, bound up in my drivetrain here. But, I just happened to, do a gear swap on this thing. Popped the motor out, took the plate out. You can see it right here on the side how this bad boy is bent. I'm still trying to figure out how that happens. I mean, I'm only running 3S. I mean, I'm not running too much power through this bad boy, so I don't know how that'd have been. If you guys got some insight on it, drop it in the comments below. Let me know what's up. On the gearing, I thought I had a 19-tooth pinion in this bad boy. If you look closely, it's not a 19. That's a 16. So now this truck is back to a 2-to-1 gear ratio, what I thought it was before with the 1938. Now it's 1836, so it's still 2-to-1. It's 2-to-1 now. It was actually 2 and some change before. And the reason why I changed the spur gear here is to try to dial some of the torque down. For your new subscribers, I'm going to tell you guys how to figure out your gear ratio. Now, the way to figure out your gear ratio, you would take your pinion, which is 18, which is this guy here. Okay. You see this here? The number on here is 18, right? Okay, now I have, hold on one second, let me get it. Okay, you see that? That's 38. So what you would do, this is your spur here. That gear that I just showed you previously, that's your pinion. So you'll take 18 divided by 38, which would give you a 2-to-1 driver, or I'm sorry, 18. It'll be 2.2 and some change actually. But if it was 18.2 divided by 36, 18 divided by 36 is 2. So your transmission drive gear ratio here would be 2-to-1. That's not your final drive for the truck, because when you figure out your final drive, you actually have to know the the gear ratio of the differentials too to figure all that in. But just for conversation's sake and to make it easier on everybody, forget about the final drive of your differentials and just focus on the transmission here. For speed runs, you want to do like a 1-to-1 gear ratio. A lot of guys go 34 on the pinion, 34 on the spur. That gives you like a 1-to-1. But if you're doing like a basher type deal, you don't want the 1-to-1 gearing because you want to have, a little bit of torque in there. So you want to dial the gearing down. I would say, if you can find a 34-tooth spur here, cool. For bashing, I would go maybe like I would start at a 24 and work my way there. Like 24, 26, 23 tooth pinion on a 36. That should be pretty decent. You should have some good top end and a little good torque for it. It'll make these 4x4s move pretty good. Now, your gearing, you should also take into effect the kilovolt of the motor, battery voltage, and battery discharge rate. When you start going crazy with the gearing like that, you have to up your C rating of your battery. So usually I would say for a speed run, you need a 50C burst, 5500 milliamp hour. Now what the burst rating is like how many amps, or I'm sorry, how hard and how fast that battery can discharge is what the C rating is. The millivolts is basically how long you have that burst. Okay, so if you have 5500 milliamps, then you can actually run that longer than a 2200 milliamp. It's basically like the size of your fuel tank in your car. So that's like saying, okay, I got a 5-gallon fuel cell rather than a 2-gallon, right? 2200 is more like 2-gallon. 5500 is like having a 5-gallon gas tank. Hopefully I can help a couple guys like that to understand it. Now, as far as the kV of the motors, let's get into that. The higher the kV, the more torqueier the motor is. I'm sorry. The higher the kV, the higher the motor runs. So if you have a 3300 kV motor, you can run that on 2S and it'll have a lot of grunt to it. Whereas if you take a 2200 motor and run it on 2S, you're not going to have that much torque, but you'll have a lot of top end. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. The other way around. The 3300 will have the top end. The 2200 won't. So to lower the KV, so if you go from like, let's say if your truck came stock with a 3300, and the 3300, you're like, okay, well it runs, you know, you have your gearing and everything else, and you're like, well, I want to put a motor in it with a little more spunk to it. So you would change from a 3300 to like a 2600. Now, when you change to a 2600 like I did here, the 2600 has more torque than the 3300, plus you can put more battery voltage to it, if that makes sense. I hope I explained this as best as I could. I hope I can help a couple of you guys out. All right? So rate, comment, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and as always, keep RC and keep wrenching. Peace.